He just keeps doing it. I mean, the amount of times, every time he seems to go into a fight like that, I look at it, I look at Fury, I look at everything that I expect to happen, and then he just goes and does completely the opposite. You know, when he boxed Vladimir Klitschko, I didn't give him a chance in that fight. The Wilder fight, the first one, I thought he'd get knocked out. You know, he won the fight, in my opinion, obviously got up off the deck twice. And in this fight, you know, all the things that I was hearing out of the camp were, he's going to try and be aggressive, he's going to try and be heavy and go for the knockout. And I thought, this is the worst idea you could ever have. And it ended up being a brilliant idea. Genius tactics from Tyson, and particularly credit to Sugar Hill and Andy Lee as well, on just really thinking about the process, thinking about the fight, understanding what happened in the first fight, and putting a game plan together that Wilder couldn't deal with. You know, he looked flat in the fight, his legs looked gone in the first round, let alone the third round. The right hand round the ear, you know, whether it damaged his ear, the shot obviously affected his equilibrium. He couldn't stand up. And from there, he just mauled him, he battered him, and he did all the things that he said he was going to do, other than the second round knockout. And, you know, he was telling the truth. I thought he should go in there and do what he does, you know, be awkward, move around and just win round after round. But it was a brilliant performance, really good performance. You know, it has to go down as one of the top British performances, particularly on away soil as well, and you know, a worthy champion. And it wasn't even like Wilder won a round, won 30 seconds. Maybe the second round, you know, was the only round that was even relatively close. Otherwise, it was a complete domination and a great performance. Yeah, I spoke to him straight after the fight, and then I spoke to him yesterday as well at length. And the first thing he said to me yesterday was, how do we make this fight happen? And I said, you know what, I don't think you need to worry, because I think genuinely, you know, you've got people on that side that want this fight. We want this fight badly. And for the first time in AJ's career, he's an underdog going into a fight, and I love that. You know, people high on Tyson Fury's victory, and rightfully so. But this is a different kind of animal to Deontay Wilder. This is not a light Deontay Wilder who can get bullied around and push backwards. This is a big, big heavyweight against another big heavyweight. And we've got to try and do everything we can to make this fight. Let's have it right for the first time ever. And you know, this will never happen again. Britain dominates and owns the heavyweight division. 3 months ago, we were sitting here, Deontay Wilder was champion, Andy Ruiz was champion, Al Heyman, America, they had all the belts. I kind of got the feeling they were almost laughing at us over there from the other side of the pond. Now, this little old country has complete domination of the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury has the WBC, the Ring Magazine title. Anthony Joshua has the WBA, the IBF, the WBO, the IBO World Championships. Britain owns the heavyweight division, the biggest division in the sport of boxing. Now, we have the opportunity to make an event. It's not just the biggest event in British boxing history, one of the biggest sporting events of all time. 2 Brits going for the undisputed heavyweight world champions. 2 completely different individuals, 2 completely different fan bases, but 2 great heavyweight world champions. 2 guys with great comeback stories. You know, Fury out of the ring. What he's come back from has been incredible. Joshua almost humiliated at Madison Square Garden. What he had to pick himself up from, come back from after being written off. Both incredible stories, both great fighters. I just believe we've got the guy. You know, I believe we've got the best heavyweight in the world, and we're willing to put it on the line and prove it. And if it can happen next, great. If not, we know we've got to fight Pulev, who's also promoted by Top Rank, like Fury, which is great for the whole dynamics of stuff. But genuinely, Fury will want this fight. AJ wants this fight. Everybody knows that this is a monstrous fight, and sometimes you get people that were just willing to come together and make a fight because you know it makes perfect sense. How can it not make perfect sense? 2 British world heavyweight champions. Let's do it. He's been very quiet since you know, and he said a lot in the build up to that fight. And I know people, you know, you have to give him a huge amount of respect. He hung in there, he stayed at it, he didn't quit. The towel came in the end. By the way, absolutely perfect decision from Mark Breland. You know, you had JDS come out and say, I can't believe he threw the title. The guy couldn't stand up. The guy didn't want to be there. You could see in his face, his head was in the towel. He had blood coming from his ear, blood coming from his mouth. He could not stand up. In fact, he's lucky that he didn't get hurt in that fight, because a bigger puncher and someone that could potentially land cleaner could have really done some damage in that fight. So you have to respect Wilder. At the same time, it was such a catastrophic beating that how do you come back from that? And like I said, it wasn't that he was in the fight or he had a couple of good rounds and got caught. He got battered from start to finish. So we'll see what he's made of. It's very difficult to come back from that kind of defeat. You know, and going back to AJ, I remember going round to his apartment on the Sunday after that fight. But all we discussed from the dressing room after the fight to the next day to the day after was, we'll get him in the rematch. You'll win the rematch. And I'm guessing that that's the noise that will come from the Wilder camp. I hope that he doesn't take the rematch. And probably the right thing to do isn't take the rematch. But it's very difficult when you've got a straight chance to win your title back, not to take it. And I think if he doesn't take it, he's going to get a huge amount of criticism. And if he doesn't take it, he may never get another chance. So we'll see. If he does take the rematch, we deal with Pulev, and then we try and make that fight in November, December. If he doesn't take the rematch, perfect. We go straight into the Fury fight. We're willing to do it. I spoke to MTK. I spoke to Top Rank already. We're happy to all move together and make that fight for the summer. My gut feeling is Wilder will come out today and say, respect to Fury, but I'll be back and I will beat him in the rematch. But for me, this fight is happening. You know, all AJ and Fury have got to do is win their next fight. And we may even see it sooner, but worst case scenario, all they've got to do is win their last fight. Yeah, I mean, he gave me, you know, he piped up on Twitter and he texted me last night saying, you know, make the fight. The truth is, Maurizio Sulaiman, wrongly in my opinion, has made it clear that Dillian Whyte will be called for the mandatory in February 21. So if I'm Dillian right now, we know he's got a Povetkin fight coming up. He's actually in a great spot because I believe Wilder would have done everything he could to avoid Dillian Whyte. Not necessarily because he was afraid of him, just because I think he's got to that point now in the egos where it's like, no, I'll make you wait. Now, Fury's not going to duck Dillian Whyte if he's mandatory. And at the end of the day, AJ will fight Fury and Dillian Whyte will be mandatory for the winner. So he's in a great spot. It's just come a year too late. And the problem with the Rivas UKAD situation, in my opinion, was that the WBC acted too quickly as almost like an excuse to put his mandatory on ice. You know, allow these two Fury-Wilder fights. But publicly, they've said it so many times, February 21. So we know it's just under a year to wait. But it's two fights, the first being Povetkin. And listen, let's give Dillian Whyte some credit. Time and time again, he's going into tough fights when he doesn't have to. He's WBC interim world champion. He's been mandatory for about 46 years. You know, at what point are the WBC just going to turn around and say, enough is enough? But we know that the worst case is February 21. But again, he's boxed Chisora twice. He's beat Joseph Parker. He boxed Rivas. Now he's boxing Povetkin. He's fighting all these guys that you just wouldn't pick while you're waiting for a shot. So give him the credit. He's deserved his shot. He's interim world champion. And one of the things that's probably gone missing in all this is right now, Dillian Whyte is officially the mandatory challenger of Tyson Fury. So his shot will come. We've just got to push it and push it. Unfortunately for me, the question I'm getting non-stop is, when's Fury against Joshua? And that is the fight people want to see. They'd love to see Fury against Whyte as well. But ultimately, we have a chance to make an undisputed fight, but Dillian Whyte is right there. He's going to get his shot, and he's going to be in the biggest fight possible in the division. Well, look, I think, you know, if you're honest, and it's easy for me to come onto any interview and say, Britain, you know, this fight must take place in Britain, and you know, it doesn't matter about the money. We also know this is the fight game, this is prize fighting, and you have teams of people that want to generate the most amount of money for their fighter, for them. There's a lot of greed, you know, sometimes from me. But ultimately, if you ask me an honest question, where should that fight take place? Britain, of course. But there's a reason that Tyson Fury hasn't boxed in Britain for the last 4 fights. It's to take more money to fight in America. So, and again, I think if you ask Fury and AJ, where would you most like that fight? They'd say Wembley Stadium. But we know it's not just a big fight in Britain, it's the biggest fight in world boxing. So we're going to get offers coming in from Middle East, from the Far East, you know, from Eastern Europe, from America, from the UK. The model will have to change for the UK. You know, maybe even the government will have to get involved, like they do in the Middle East or like they do in other potential sites, and say, we need this fight here. Because it's impossible to take a fight for a quarter or a third of the money that you could get elsewhere. It's a prize fight. And this fight is the ultimate challenge for both of those guys. But if we can get it in the UK, special times. And we should do everything we can to try and make that fight in the UK. Joshua wants to fight in the UK. That's why he's fighting Pulev. He's having to take half the money that he could make elsewhere to fight in the UK. But he's done Madison Square Garden. He's done Saudi Arabia. It's time to bring AJ home. If that's against Pulev, or better if that's against Fury, let's see those fights in the UK.